I was gonna moist meter Overwatch 2, but then I thought that that's not fair considering the big bulk of what makes it a sequel isn't even out yet, which is the story mode or PvE. Right now it's exclusively the multiplayer, which is basically still just Overwatch 1 with some big patches to it. So instead of doing a moist meter, I'm just gonna come in here raw and give you my full, unfiltered thoughts. The brutally honest truth. So if you're allergic to facts, then I recommend you get your EpiPen out because I'm not pulling any punches this time around. I'm going Insano style. I'm entering a flow state of opinions about Overwatch 2. So over the last week or so, I've played probably about 35 hours worth of Overwatch 2, which for me is a lot. The World Health Organization would diagnose me with a severe case of epic super style gamer. I'm somewhat of a power gamer, and I put a lot of time in Overwatch 2, and I feel like I've got a firm grasp on the game as of right now. Now, a lot of you know that I was a very outspoken critic of Overwatch 1. Unironically, I was one of the biggest hate watchers of that game. I would keep up with it just to make fun of it and be upset by it, go out of my way to be offended by its existence. I was a huge fan of Overwatch for Season 1, and played it actively all the way up until Brigitte came out, which is when most people started to drop the game, because it got super stinky. The game devolved into just giant fucking bullet sponges, just shooting at meat, charging ult, and then dumping ults all at the same time, rinse and repeat. It wasn't very fun. Nothing but massive shields to break through and hard CC that basically just turned your computer off for 8 seconds during the game if you got chained by it. It was just not enjoyable, so I didn't like the game for a long time. It even became a yearly tradition on my streams to do an Overwatch check-in annually, just to go in there and be mad, like just play the game and get upset by it and realize that it still hasn't gotten any better. So obviously I wasn't the biggest Overwatch enthusiast. I stopped being a fan of the game after about a year and a half, and from that point forward, the best thing Overwatch ever had was its porn. The porn community was keeping Overwatch alive. It was the last heartbeat for that game. So I really didn't have huge expectations for Overwatch 2, if I'm being honest. I thought it was just going to be more of the same and just be really boring, and I'd drop it pretty quickly. But surprisingly, that hasn't been the case. I've actually really been enjoying the game, which is a bigger shock than when Hank Schrader found out that Walter White was Heisenberg. I truly didn't expect to enjoy the game as much as I am. It's far from perfect, so I want to immediately jump into the things that are wrong with the game. So first of all, everyone knows it had a laughably awful launch. Queue times that would go fucking hours and you'd never get in. You'd just be locked in this endless purgatory waiting to play the game on day 1. Even day 2, the servers weren't fixed. I believe it was due to being DDoSed. I think that's what Blizzard said was the main cause. Some people could play, some people couldn't, but it was an absolute mess, and it became a massive joke about how terrible day 1 and day 2 were for Overwatch 2. Another big problem with it is the needing a mobile number in order to play. That also was extremely messy because some providers wouldn't actually work. So even if you had a legitimate phone, legitimate number and everything, if it was like a prepaid phone, I think it was Cricket was the big one, you still couldn't access the game. Blizzard wouldn't allow it, but I believe all of that's been fixed. So these massive problems that arose immediately at least have been addressed and fixed to some level, as I understand it. But even still, a pretty inexcusable, catastrophically awful launch for Overwatch 2. Now let's dive into the actual game itself. As all of the astute observers have realized, the game looks exactly like Overwatch 1. Anyone with eyes and a brain will be able to immediately recognize that not much has changed visually or gameplay-wise from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2. As I mentioned, it's the same game. It's not really a sequel in terms of its multiplayer. It's basically Overwatch update. But they've now lumped it all together into Overwatch 2 because that's coming out with like the PvE and everything. So the name has changed from Overwatch to Overwatch 2, I guess mainly for marketing because it's a lot easier to generate hype around Overwatch 2 versus Overwatch 1.5, something like that. So yes, it is still the exact same Overwatch, but with some big changes to it. And you're delusional if you don't think these changes make an impact on the game. The biggest one by far is the switch from 6v6 to 5v5. It is an extraordinary breath of fresh air. The biggest problem with Overwatch 1, as I mentioned, was just everyone being a bullet sponge in the entire game just being fucking meaningless until you get your ult because everyone has massive shields, everyone has huge health. So you just shoot at a giant clump of fucking flesh and grease until you charge your ult and then you just dump all your ults at the same time. It was so boring. And the biggest problem, the reason why that was there and such a big problem, is because of the 2 tank meta. In a 6v6, you always had 2 tank, 2 DPS, 2 healers. And those tanks always had shields and shit, so it was just really boring. Such a snooze fest. But 5v5 speeds up the pacing a ton. In role queue, you only have 1 tank. And yes, admittedly, that tank is like a fucking raid boss that somehow also spits and shits out so much DPS, it's wild. But it's still just 1 tank, which means you now as a DPS or even a healer, like Zenyatta can pop off, you have much more of an impact on the outcome of the game. You're able to actually get picks more, you're able to actually have fights. Like, it's no longer just shoot at the team shield till it breaks and you get your ult. Now you can actually fight each other as opposed to just waste time until ults come online. It's just so much better. I don't think there is a single person who's played Overwatch 2 right now that says they preferred 6v6. I haven't seen that take anywhere. Not on Twitter, not on Reddit, fucking nowhere. I would have expected some people to get like nostalgic, like put a finger up their ass and be like, damn, I miss the good old days when you could have 2 tanks and do nothing for fucking 45 minutes per match. I miss it. I hate that the game's faster now. It's such a welcome change. It is so much better. Another thing Overwatch 2 does that's just an absolute fat W is the removal of hard CC. There is still some, but not nearly as prevalent as it was in the first Overwatch. Like I mentioned, it was a huge problem there. If you got chain CC'd, it was miserable, absolutely insufferable. I would have rather cleaned a gas station bathroom with my face than play Overwatch 1 with all the stuns and all that shit. It was so bad. In Overwatch 2, a lot of those hard CC abilities have been replaced. For example, Cassidy, I keep forgetting they changed that character's name, the old western shooting cowboy man, gunmaster cowboy guy, he no longer has that flashbang anymore. Instead, he now has a sticky grenade. So he throws a grenade, it can stick to you, and it does a lot of damage when it blows up. So no longer a stun. And I just think that's overall better for the health of the game. Just these 2 changes alone immediately improve the experience, making it more enjoyable. At least for me personally. I prefer the more high-octane, full-throttle gameplay as opposed to just sitting behind your tank and doing nothing. Healers in this game, the support class, are actually super fun too. Because now that it's not just a ton of shields and frontline tanks that just clutter everything, now you, even as a healer, can do a ton of damage and contribute a lot, even just beyond healing. Like, I'll oftentimes see Zenyatta top frag, and even out DPS some of the DPS characters, because the healers are pretty well designed to be fun. Like, a lot of my friends are actual support mains because they just really love it. In particular, Anna. Anna's really, like, become a crowd favorite for at least my friend group. I know a lot of my friends play Anna now. And for good reason. She's super strong and she is fun to play. Like, overall, just everything in the game has been improved by just these 2 changes alone. The new heroes they've introduced, I also enjoy. Haven't played much of Kiriko because she's not available in ranked mode yet, and all I play is ranked mode. I never do casual because I'm not a pussy. I don't waste my time. If I'm playing a game, I'm out there grinding to be number 1 on the leaderboard, baby. And she's not available there, so I haven't really played much of her. But I do like Sojourn and I do like Junker Queen, though I do think Junker Queen's a little underwhelming compared to some of the really strong tanks like Orisa right now. But I don't think there's any like dog shit characters at the moment. I think the weakest character in the game that I can think of off the top of my head is Doomfist. Doomfist is kind of useless right now and completely outclassed by legitimately every other tank in the game. But aside from him, almost every other character feels very strong right now. And you're just having a good time regardless. Now, again, this is Overwatch. It's not really like a huge departure from the Overwatch formula. The maps are the same, the game modes are the same. There are new maps and there is a new game mode, but overall you're going to just be playing mostly the normal Overwatch stuff and experiencing normal Overwatch shit. So if you didn't like that, this game is not winning you over. It's not even going to come close because you're playing the same thing, just a better version of it. So if you didn't like Overwatch, you're not going to like Overwatch 2. I'm not going to, sugarcoat that at all. It's just that simple. One other compliment I'd like to give to the game is there's a lot of really fun custom games, like some really goofy ones like Kill to Grow, where you start as like a little ant, but as you get more kills, you start getting bigger and bigger until it's like a giant kaiju fight. Like there's really enjoyable custom games that just brought back that nostalgic feeling of old like Halo custom games, which I haven't really seen in many other titles recently. So I just wanted to shout out the custom games at the moment because those have actually been pretty fun to dick around in. And one more thing that I don't like, the ranking system at the moment. The competitive ladder doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. They have this system in place that's very mysterious and doesn't compute with me or anyone in my friend group, where they don't allow you to queue with people that are even somewhat higher or lower ranked than you. So, for example, we tried stacking and we were able to play whatever role we wanted for like the first two games. But then by the third game, one of us wasn't allowed to be DPS anymore. One of us wasn't allowed to be tank anymore. One of us wasn't allowed to be support anymore for no reason. Like none of us had even gotten a new rank or anything. Just after winning two games, all of a sudden we got locked out of our favorite role for some reason. And they're doing this because they don't want like Smurfs to be, infesting the lower ranks or some shit, I guess. But it's super, super strict and really vague, like super obtuse. Nothing really makes sense about it because we all started at Bronze 5. I feel like there was some kind of bug with the game. This could be copium, but I've read a lot where like even Grandmasters started Bronze 5. After you finish your placements, like most people end up Bronze, so all of us were in like Bronze 5. But for some reason, after winning like 3 games together, some of us wouldn't be allowed to play our main role, even though we hadn't gotten a new rank or anything like that. So it just doesn't make sense. And I really don't think it's copium. I saw now 4 Grandmasters, Overwatch 1 Grandmasters, that got placed Bronze 5 after going 7-0. I personally went 7-1 in my placements and got Bronze 5. So I definitely think there was some kind of bug with the ranking right away. But regardless, I really don't like this super strict, very counterintuitive queue lock system they have, because it just doesn't make a ton of sense. You should be able to queue with your friends within reason, like unranked bronze and silver should all be able to play together until like one of them reaches like gold, then they can't play with bronze or something, or even like plat. Like it just feels way too strict and nothing makes sense about it at the moment to me. So I think that's a lot of trash. I also am not sure how I feel about their competitive system where you have to win 7 games or lose 20. You lose 20, you go back, or you win 7 and you go forward. I also think there's a bug with that. Could again be copium, but I won 7 and got from Bronze 5 to Bronze 5. So my promotion was Bronze 5 to Bronze 5. But then I won 7 more and got promoted all the way to Silver 4. So it really might have been a glitch. I don't know. But regardless, I don't know how I feel about the win 7 or lose 20 system at the moment. I'll have to keep playing to see how it feels. But overall, I've just been enjoying the core game itself, which I can't believe I'm even saying. So yeah, I just wanted to get all my thoughts out here about Overwatch 2, and that's about it. So yeah.